Hi, and welcome back to Wake Up with Natalie Rose. You might notice my voice sounds a little bit off. I'm just recovering from sickness. I could have waited until I felt 100% to record this intro, but I have an episode that feels really important to share. And so I figured, why wait? Why wait until things are perfect to show up, right? That pretty much goes against everything that I try to encourage you guys, my listeners and my clients to do. So I'm showing up not 100%, but very passionate about this topic. Okay, so today I'm joined by Cynthia Donovan. She's a registered dietitian and nutritionist with over 15 years of experience helping women recover from hypothalamic amenorrhea and reclaim their health, their fertility, and more importantly, their lives. Now, if you have no problems with your period, that's okay. Keep listening. If you are someone who feels like you need to be in control of what you eat, of what you weigh, of what your body looks like, of your schedule or your to-do list, you need to listen to this episode. While Cynthia shares her personal journey of losing her period from over-exercising and ultimately restoring her hormones and fertility, this conversation is not just about missing or irregular periods. It is about control. It is about what happens when we try to manage the outcomes of our goals so tightly that we actually push ourselves farther away from what we want. Cynthia's story shows how letting go of weight control and reintroducing safety into her body was the key, not only to getting her period back and having two beautiful children, but the key to being more present in her life, reconnecting with herself and building a sense of self-worth separate from her body. And if you're trying to heal your relationship with food or with your body, but you cannot let go of controlling your weight, you're going to feel very seen in this conversation. I need you to hear it. So let's get into it. Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for joining me. It's so great to have you on. I can't remember when the last time was that I was on your podcast. That feels like it must have been ages ago.
It does. It was definitely before you were pregnant, and now you have a 6-month-old.
Okay. Well,
so yeah,
feels ages ago.
So at least over a year. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks so much for coming back on. I would love to hear a little bit more about your story. I know that my members in my community group coaching membership, whenever I have experts on there and we're chatting, honestly, the thing that they're most interested in is your own personal story. So I always love digging into that before we get into it. I think it's awesome when an expert, can relate to their clients because you've been through it before too.
Yeah, that relatability, being able to see yourself in somebody else is just so huge. And I'm not just talking for getting your period back or healing your relationship with food, but like even as a mom, me and you were just kind of talking pre-show about sleeping babies and, it's like just being like, oh, like I have a baby that may not be sleeping as well. Like, oh, you went through that too, so it's just that it just makes you feel so seen. And so like, I'm not alone in this. And so my story, which I am always so excited to share about, started a really long time ago. So I've been a registered dietitian now for, oh my gosh, let's just say, is it 15 years? Yeah, at least 15 years, maybe more. I'm just going to cap it at 15 years. And I didn't know I wanted to be a dietitian until I couldn't do calculus, but that's not part of the story. But that's kind of how it ventured, because I was like, oh, I didn't even know there was such a profession at the time. And I was already very in tune with like nutrition and exercise and being quote unquote healthy. And it was around my senior year in high school when I went on my first diet. And I always wanted to diet before because I saw my mom dieting. I saw friends talking about it. And so for my senior ball, I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose some weight. And so that's kind of when I got on this health train. I didn't go to college to become a dietitian probably for a few years after that, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But I was like, oh, how aligned. I'm going to help people get healthier and lose weight. So it began. And, growing up, I saw my mom, she wouldn't like force it on me of like, you shouldn't eat this or that. She would let me eat cake for breakfast. She would let me eat very intuitively. And to the point though, where it was kind of not the best intuitive style, because there's all different realms of that. So we're not going to get into that now. But so she was counting calories. And so I saw that and I didn't think anything of it until it came down to where I was at. So flash forward, I became a dietitian and I was like, oh my gosh, how amazing. I'm going to be able to tell people how to lose weight and how to be healthier. And so I feel like for me, Natalie, going to school to be a dietitian just amplified my already starting obsession with food and body and so forth, because it was very calculation, like, oh, you're 5'1", so, and I am barely 5'1", you should have X amount of calories, or, you should be eating this much for your weight and your height. I think it was a breaking point for me. I'm going to skip through a little bit of the nitty gritty, not to make this story too long, but I was put on the birth control pill when I was about, I think, 15, because my periods were irregular. And so that was the thing, go on the pill. I'm like, okay, cool. Problem solved. And I went to school. I ended up getting engaged actually on the day I graduated with my master's degree. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be getting married. So let me come off the pill to make sure everything is okay. And so I came off the pill, no period to be found. Doctors assured me, it's fine. You've been on the pill for a long time. Give your body some time to regulate. Months went by, no period. And at that point, I'm like, well, I don't want to get my period for my wedding. Little did I know, Natalie, I wasn't getting my period back anytime soon. When wedding season hit, that was when I went into hyperdrive. Like I was already like being super conscious of what I was eating and exercising. Wedding time was like, oh no, I have to look my best. Like it is my wedding day. I'm going to be looking at these pictures for the rest of my life. So I got to look good. Not like I'm getting married, I'm in love, and like, the things like a wedding should be. And so I came off the pill. Doctors assured me it was fine. Went back on it because I was scared I would have my period for my wedding. So I think I went back on it for a couple more months, came off of it, no period. And then I was kind of like, no, this is not right. But in the back of my head, and this is where I want to just like take a moment to pause and talk about intuition for a moment, is that I knew something was up. I knew when it was time to come to have babies, it wasn't going to be possible. I don't know, there was something in the universe, whatever you want to call it, telling me like something is up. You are not going to be able to conceive kids when you want. So I kind of ignored that, but kind of listened to it at the same time. And so my doctors, I went back on the pill and I got my period. FYI, getting a period on the pill is not a real period. And so then came off again, still no period. So this is going, I'm married, and I'm like, well, if something happens, it's fine. I'm married now and, I'll have a baby. Well, little did I know that wasn't happening for a long time. So I think it was maybe after probably my first year of marriage, or within the first year, I started exploring, why don't I have my period? PCOS came up. Oh, you have PCOS. And again, a huge, incredibly alarming, consuming amount of misdiagnoses of PCOS versus hypothalamic amenorrhea. So I didn't know at the time I had HA. I'm going to shorten that for hypothalamic amenorrhea. I didn't know at the time I had it, but I was misdiagnosed with PCOS, which sent me into overdrive of being even more healthy, because PCOS, at that particular time, you can't, you can't eat, high fat, low carb, you got to just exercise all the time. So this hyperdrived it for me, Natalie. And I didn't have it. So it sent me deeper into HA. And doctors assured me like, okay, maybe you should go on metformin. And so I tried metformin and that didn't work. And I'm going to kind of condense it again. 5-year time period, Natalie, where I finally got a diagnosis of HA, and multiple doctors, visits, ultrasounds. How cute. I see your kitty. Mine's over there. So multiple ultrasounds, doctor visits. And finally I was like, oh my God, like I give up. Like I don't know what to do. Nothing's working. At that time, finally, a reproductive endocrinologist was like, Cynthia, you have hypothalamic amenorrhea. I'm like, no, I don't. No, that is impossible. That is for women that have eating disorders or that are low body weight, that exercise all the time and are athletes. And so hindsight 2020, okay, no, I didn't have an eating disorder. No, I wasn't an athlete. No, my BMI wasn't super low. But guess what? I was exercising like an athlete. And, even though my BMI wasn't low, your weight doesn't indicate your energy availability. But I learned that in college. Like I learned like this is what HA is. So I had a really hard time coming to terms that I now had to eat more and rest more, which went against my entire identity as a dietitian and as a quote unquote fit, healthy woman. So that's kind of how it came to fruition. And then once I came to terms with it, I had to battle the weight gain because I was already a quote normal weight, and I didn't need, in my head, I didn't need to gain any more weight. And so that was a big struggle of me, and it made me not trust the process. But again, at that time, I didn't know that just because you're at a normal weight doesn't mean you're eating enough. My body was just holding on to all that weight because it wasn't getting enough food. And my energy output, I was exercising like 2 hours a day, most days of the week. So that was a tough pill for me to swallow. And I spent many months trying to get my period back. And then I was like, well, I'm approaching 30 now. And I don't know why 30 is just some like magical age. Like you must have kids by 30. Like that's another timeline thing. Like, oh, you must get married, then have kids, da, 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 da. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting old. I'm going to be 30. Now, granted, I'm 40 now, Natalie, and I'm like, I feel better than I have when I was 27. And maybe we can get into that after, but I was getting impatient and I was eating more, I was resting more, nothing was happening. And so I decided to pursue fertility treatments because I didn't know at that particular time, this is like 15 years ago, 10, or maybe 12, somewhere around there, that wasn't a guarantee. There was no books out there. There was no practitioners like myself, like get your period back. And like, as long as you do X, Y, and Z, it's going to happen. It's the science. There was none of that. So I had no like inner trust that it would happen. So, and after 5 years of trying to figure this out, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try fertility treatment. They said Clomid wouldn't work because my hypothalamus was pretty much shut down, and Clomid's not going to do anything for that. So I had to go straight to injectables. And that meant giving myself daily injections and HCG trigger shot in order to induce ovulation, timed intercourse. I went through 3 rounds of that until it finally worked for me. And was doing all the right things. I was eating more. I was resting more. But one big, super, super big missing piece of my puzzle was that I still didn't feel safe in my body. I still wasn't connecting with my body. I was just still doing all these outside sources, which yes, you need nourishment. Yes, you need rest. But I was just focusing on that and only that in order to get my period back. I was still a type A, like control freak. I was still so scared of gaining weight. So to me, finally, when I let go and I surrendered, and when I say let go, I don't mean like I just went to McDonald's every day and ate all the food and just sat on the couch and was like a couch potato. What I mean when I say when I let go is I let go of the outcome. I let go of not wanting to be pregnant, but having more hope and less control. And so for me, that was finally, and I was like, I started living my life too. Instead of like micromanaging my increase in food and my rest days and so forth, I started going out and having fun with my then husband. I was hanging out with friends again. I wasn't like that robotic version of Cynthia where she was just routine and scheduled and just couldn't do anything else outside of that. And I know at that particular time that it was just a way of me trying to feel safe because it was familiar for my brain. But now I know that was one of my biggest missing pieces of the puzzle. So on my 3rd round, after, nourishing and kind of letting go and surrendering to what is and really saying like life is happening for me and not to me, I conceived the most beautiful little boy and had the most beautiful, amazing pregnancy ever. And so then I'm going to flash forward a little bit. I got my period back, I think 12 months postpartum. I'm still breastfeeding, which just an FYI, like those out there that have lost their period and have become moms and had babies, like if you love breastfeeding, don't stop breastfeeding if you're worried about if you're going to get your period or not back. If you're nourishing, if you're resting, if you're doing the self-care, nervous system care, all those things, like your period's going to come back, I promise. So I got my period back 12 months postpartum and I conceived naturally at 15 months postpartum, still breastfeeding. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have another baby on the way. I can't believe it was that easy. And look what happens when you take care of your body. Amazing things.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many juicy tidbits in there that I want to go back and dive into. But I think even just the last thing you said of when you're finally taking care of your body, amazing things happen. It's crazy because at, one point in your journey, probably throughout the earlier days, you probably thought you were taking the best care of your body, like exercising and eating healthy. Like that's what we're all taught, is taking good care of our body. I guess you mentioned that breaking point was that you had to let go. Sorry, my cat is just laying down on my mouse and just
what a fluffer.
Destruction. She's such a huge fluff. I love her.
Oh,
and
she's so pretty.
I don't know if you have pets, but like after having babies, you feel kind of guilty for not giving them the same amount of love as you did pre-baby. So I'm like, I don't want to lock her out of the room. But anyways.
Yes. My cat is sleeping on my couch in my office. Usually once I start speaking, he's like all over me. So I'm surprised he's not here with me.
But what was I saying? So that point where you were dealing with weight changes, like that was really tough for you because you were, and I'm just barely 5'1" as well. So I can relate to the height and weight thing. But how did you, like, what came up for you when you started? Did you notice your body changing when you started nourishing more and reducing exercise?
I did. And it was so hard. And one particular moment, Natalie, I will never forget probably for the rest of my life, is I pulled up to my grandmother's house and, I was just visiting her, and I don't know, I can't remember who was there, but I walked in. And this was around the time I was hoping to get pregnant, and I gained weight. I felt really uncomfortable in my body. And I walk in and she goes, Cynthia, she's like, are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, why? It was a big pit in my throat. And she goes, oh, well, you look a little heavier. And then that pit in my throat turned into a gut punch. And I'm like, oh my God, like other people are noticing. And I leave it to grandmothers. They have no filter a lot of times. And of course we can't be completely mad at them because they grew up in a different time of diet cultureness than we even did. But that's when after I left the visit, the whole time I just was like in my mind about my weight and like never being able to become a mom. And what if I'm doing all this for nothing and all these things. And not to mention, I was still like grappling with like how I missed going to the gym and my CrossFit people and what other people are going to think, like I didn't even know who I was. And so I left there and I remember getting back in my car and just crying my heart out. And I'm like, I cannot live this way anymore. I just can't. I cannot live this way. And then from there, it was like, all right, I need to choose different. I need to do something different because how I'm feeling, what I'm doing is just, it's not working. It's the definition of insanity. I was doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so that's when, Natalie, I started to tap into more kind of spiritual practices. So I remember, I don't know how I got introduced to her, but she was a Reiki massage therapist. And she, gosh, I cannot remember, but I met with her and I love massages. So that's kind of maybe how I got drawn to her. But she also would tell me like things she would feel or see. And one of the times I met with her, she goes, you're definitely going to become a mom one day. And this is kind of maybe woo-woo for maybe some, but I'm into the woo. And she's like, no, I see you become a mom. And the first thing I was like, well, when is it going to happen? Trying to attach to the control again of the outcome. And so, but that little bit of hope, even though people would tell me like, okay, Cynthia, you don't worry, like it'll happen. When you're struggling through infertility, people say all these positive things to you, but it's like, they don't know how I'm feeling. So you don't really feed off their positivity. At least I didn't. But from a complete stranger who was doing a massage on me, something made me trust in that there is hope and that I will become a mom. And maybe it wasn't that particular day, but after that, along with kind of doing things different, I started to have hope and start to envision myself being a mom. So whether that was holding my new nephew that initially when I first found out my sister-in-law was pregnant, I was just like, I want that to be me. Why me? Why me? So I started to leave that victim, what I like to call as victim mentality of like, why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? To like, this is going to happen for me. This is going to happen for me. I am going to become a mom. And I would have to start to have dreams about like breastfeeding and holding my baby. And then when I was holding other babies, I would just say to myself, like, one day this is going to be my baby. This is going to be my baby in my arms. And it's so funny, Natalie, my boys are 7 and 9 now. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to stick pencils in my eyes. You guys are driving me crazy. And I'm like, Cynthia, reminder, like, remember there was a time you never thought you'd be in this place. So, so it was a hard but beautiful moment that day at my grandmother's house, which I would say was, my breaking point after I guess I had 2 breaking points, Natalie. It was the breaking point of like, I'm not like screwing around with medical stuff anymore. And then finally this doctor came into my life, was like, all right, this is what is going on. And then my breaking point of, having a clear journey of what I needed to do to get my period back, more food, more rest. But then the breaking point of like, I need to stop trying to control the situation and controlling my body and how I feel about my body. And so, I started to shift language. I started to envision, I started to have more hope. And I think that, was a next step into finally having that nurse call me and say, you're pregnant, Cynthia.
That's incredible. Like I was trying to hold back tears when you're just envisioning and speaking to yourself from that growth mindset. Oh my God, we do that a lot in coaching. We switch from that victim mentality to the growth mindset, and that it has to involve some of that, what some people call woo woo. Yeah. But it's really like tapping into a spiritual part of you, or just an open mind. And I can relate to that completely. Like when I was struggling the most, I used to think mindfulness and meditation or spirituality or visualization, like all of those things I used to roll my eyes at. I was similarly over controlled. So we talk about this in my course, actually. The first thing I get clients to do is to do sort of like a personality test. And it just determines whether they have a more over controlled personality type, or in other words, an emotional coping style, or an under controlled. And the difference between the two is just basically type A and type B. It's like you cope with emotions by having a checklist, checking things off, basically trying to control everything. And when you have that kind of personality mindset, you're not used to not following the rules. Like it's so abstract to envision a future instead of just think about what you're afraid of and how to fix it. And so I love how you mentioned that was something that you really had to do to start building safety within your body. You were talking about meeting with the Reiki and the masseuse, and how it kind of helped you be in your body versus just observing it or like trying to follow the rules to get to where you needed to be. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that I think it was really, Natalie, my first experience of being more one with my body than living separately of my body. Because it literally, and I'm sure you can relate to this, it literally felt like for years, like there was my body and then there was like a part of me like living outside of my body versus being connected all one. And so that first time of, I think I might have done a little bit of like chakra work before. And I wish I could remember. I'm going to have to like dive deep and be like, how did I step into this? And I think it was like just getting a massage. And I heard, from someone that's a really good massage therapist. And I think maybe she did like more, deeper stuff with people that she could versus like people that would be like, what the heck are you talking about? You see this or that. Right. So I think I told her I was open to that. And so she shared, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like you said, it's sometimes so hard to see outside of what we're feeling and look into the future of the amazing possibilities that could be. And I know that happens for various reasons, but for me, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, like it helped me instill a little bit of trust and hope in myself versus always outsourcing my trust and hope, because I did that a lot. It was always like, well, what does my husband think? Or what does this person think? Or like, there's no chat GPT at the time, but I would assume if there was a chat GPT, I would have been chat GPTing it. But yeah, it was just a really amazing connection. And I think around that time, I found this wonderful quote, and I always butcher it. You would think I'd know it by heart by now, but I think it said something like, and I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. Maybe I'm not going to butcher it. I want to be your friend. And my body said back to me, I've been waiting my whole life for this.
I've seen that poem. That one shook me. I think that one, it really causes you to reflect on how long you've been at war with your body. Mm-hmm. And like you said, just kind of being outside of it, just looking at it as something to fix and control and to perfect, instead of actually valuing how you feel in your body and like yourself as a human being who has a body. I think we've been taught to view it as something to perfect, that the exterior, our physical appearance, is the most important thing. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter how you feel when you're dieting or if you're exercising too much, because those are just the things that are going to help you control your body, which is the ultimate goal. But it's so the opposite, because like you're saying, if you over control, you create so much stress and more disconnection with your body that your body doesn't feel safe enough to produce something like a period. Or even like for me, I never lost my period. There were definitely changes that I overlooked. Like if you're not actively trying to have babies, you often don't hear just how much hormonal health is important and how much it's important to have a regular period, even if you're not trying to have babies. Yeah, I forget where I was going with that.
Natalie, was your period irregular? Was it light? Was it?
When I think about it, when I was around 30, I wasn't thinking about having kids then at all. So again, that's probably why I didn't really look into it. But I remember it being just very short and very light. Mm. And I looked at that as a good thing. I was like, oh, great. Yeah. Like I don't have heavy periods. Awesome period. Who wants a heavy period? But if I think about it, like if I was ready to start having kids at that time, I bet you I would have had a lot of trouble. I also wonder what that could have done to my health, like my bone density or things like that underneath the surface that I never explored because I never looked unhealthy. I never looked too thin or emaciated. But who knows? Something that stood out to me that you mentioned earlier was that your weight doesn't indicate your energy availability. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I feel like that might hit home for a lot of people as well.
Yes. And I want to say before I talk about the energy availability is that, your period, if you're on the pill, you're not going to know if anything irregularities are going on. But for you, Natalie, just kind of what you just shared in the past couple minutes is that chances are your hypothalamus was being impacted by your energy availability. And, maybe you were a normal weight or maybe on the lower side of normal or even on the higher side. It really doesn't matter. And this will lead into it. But any kind of lightness to a period or not getting it between like 28 and 35 days is I don't want to say it's HA, but it's like on the spectrum. So thinking of it like you might be there before you actually get to the missing period, or your body might just stay there. And let's just say you were in the pursuit to getting pregnant. There might have been a chance that you had trouble conceiving because maybe you weren't ovulating or you didn't have high enough progesterone levels to have that baby implant in a good way. So that is so knowing that even if there's menstrual irregularities, it can impact your bone health. It can impact your heart health. And it can impact your mood and so forth. So I just wanted to touch upon that because I think sometimes, I don't have a missing period, so I'm fine. Like, no. And I truly believe there's so much infertility out there and we are so pressured as women to be our healthiest self. I mean, and fertility clinics, most anyways, are out there being like, oh, you need to eat more, rest more, regulate your nervous system. They're like, okay, let's start a Clomid. Let's then do IUI, then IVF or whatever. So I feel like I had to really say that explore HA. Even if your period isn't completely missing, make sure you're ovulating, make sure your progesterone levels are okay. Your luteal phase is sufficient enough. So back to your initial question, Natalie, of energy availability. So energy availability, meaning, so if your weight if you're at a normal or maybe even a higher weight or maybe an overweight BMI. And I just want to say I also hate using BMI, but I'm just going to use it for context. And so I am going to use myself as kind of like a case study. Is I was probably close to an overweight BMI for my 5'1", and I wasn't getting a period. And I'm like, okay, well, this doesn't make any sense. And so what happens is that your body, after a while, will say, you know what, the heck with her. I'm keeping on. I'm lowering my metabolism because that's not essential to keep running at a regular weight, just along with like a missing period. Like we don't need hormones to like be alive. I just need my heart beating, my lungs breathing, my brain working to some length. And that's pretty much it. Digestion, we can even do without that. Or impact it. Usually your digestion doesn't completely shut off like your period might. So your body gets really smart at energy conservation. And so your metabolism slows and your body is like, no, like I need to hold on to this weight because I have no idea if I'm going to continue to stay in famine. So it's a protection mechanism to our body. So even if we are, and at the time, and I hate to use numbers for context, but I was eating a low amount of calories for my activity levels, and I was working out like 2 hours a day. So I thought, oh, well, I'm not losing any weight, so I must be eating enough. No, my body was like, oh no, I'm going to conserve every little bit of fat on this body, weight, anything I could hold on to keep her body running, to keep my body running. And so that's kind of where it comes from. It's a survival mechanism of the body. So we can't ever say that weight really indicates health as well, because you can be in a normal weight and not have a damn period, but then you can be at a lower body weight. So this is kind of where it gets a little bit tricky. You can be a low BMI, because I've had, women tell me, oh, my BMI is like 18, but I have a regular period still. And so genetically, she might not be in a place where her body's like, okay, I'm going to shut down. But a BMI of like 17, 18, that's not typically healthy. And chances are we have some of that mental blockage of like controlling our food, our exercise around that particular weight, or just not eating enough and maybe not knowing that we're eating enough. So yeah, bottom line is we can't look at someone and tell them or know that they're, healthy or not, which I know you know, Natalie, but yeah, that's kind of what I mean by energy availability. So once we get into a place, so let's just say someone's out there thinking, and this was me, it's like, okay, well, I'm at a normal weight, like I have to gain more weight. And we can't pay attention to the weight gain and period recovery. We have to pay attention to the hormonal signs and symptoms that are coming back, not the weight. Because if we pay attention to the weight, we're going to scare ourselves to death. We're already scared. We're going to scare ourselves even more and be like, oh my God, I'm past this number of, I was okay with gaining 5 pounds and now I've gained 10 pounds. And like, oh my gosh, that's going to send your nervous system into a state of non-safety for the body.
Yeah.
So then we're not negating it, but sort of in a way, we're making it harder for our bodies to be like, okay, I'm safe enough. I got the food maybe and the rest now, but like now I'm friggin', crapping my pants because I am just so scared of gaining any more weight. And what I can tell you is that your body is going to do what it needs to do, which is really scary, because if someone told me that, I'd be like, I'm just going to keep gaining and gaining and gaining until I cannot, I'm going to gain forever for the rest of my life. And so I just want to say, bring it back. That is an untrue statement. You have no truth behind that statement, right? That you're going to keep gaining and gaining. It's a story that we're telling ourselves in our head. I told myself the same. And that once you get your period back and you get these regular periods, you continue to heal your relationship with food and body and movement, your body is going to go to exactly where it needs to go. And potentially it might be higher than you have anticipated. It might be lower than you had anticipated. But if you can get into this place of having regular, healthy ovulatory cycles, exercising in a joyful, maybe sometimes structured way. And when I say that, it's like I try to wake up 3 days out of the week and do some type of movement. But if I don't do it, I'm not stressed about it. And then I also like to have fun. I just learned how to ski for the first time at 40 years old, So, having a balance, I like to say that kind of is a blanket statement of balancing your relationship with food, with rest, with movement. And so that's when, and again, this is all easier said than done, because as Natalie knows, there's layers of work in between all of these things, whether it's mindset work, spiritual work, nervous system regulation, and so forth, that happen kind of in tandem with working through your relationship with food and rest and body. And so that's when your body will go to where it needs to go. And I promise, you will not continue to gain and gain and gain and gain and gain.
But that's the biggest fear, right? Like I'm sure every client that you've had has said
worst case scenario, always.
Yeah. Because that's what our brain does when we're afraid of something. You know, it goes to the worst case scenario and it blows things out of proportion. Like I'll never stop gaining weight. And that's why I love how you mentioned the layers of like, it's not just about releasing control. It's also about diving into what's underneath that, like the mindset work, the core beliefs that are making you believe that you need to have such tight control, and leaning into really trusting your body. Did you ever find that because you used to have that type A personality type, or still do, when they told you that you just have to regulate your nervous system, you found yourself like doing some of the things just to check it off of the list, but not really being present in it? Like, for example, if someone said, okay, you know, you could try meditating, that'll help with your anxiety. And then you like did a guided meditation. You're like, okay, I've done it. Like, am I healed now?
Yes. And at that time, Natalie, I never even heard the word, like, you have to regulate your nervous system. I'm trying to think where I made that connection. Well, it was first, like, I'm like, this is the definition of insanity. Eating more and resting more is not going to happen. But it was more of like, you need to become more connected with your body. So I think I got you need to get more connected to your body versus, like, I feel like we throw around the term a lot of like nervous system regulation. So like, how do we become more connected with our body? Because if we can become more connected with our body, hopefully our nervous system, you know, that's going to kind of play into that. And so that connection for me, I think if I heard nervous system regulation first, of being like, oh, you should meditate and you should journal and you should be like, okay, I meditated. Okay, I journaled. But I think I got to such a breaking point, and then hearing the connection piece before like more to-do items, I think I would have totally jumped on the like check it off the list thing if it introduced its way into my life in a different kind of way, if that makes sense. But heck yeah. If I found that maybe like a year before, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start meditating. Okay, I meditated. Okay, cool. Like, I don't think at that particular time, my body was in a place to be able to absorb and accept that and be with it versus do it. Right? Yeah. If that makes sense.
So what I'm hearing is it's almost like more of a mindset shift of being open to exploring different ways of being in your body, like through play and through like not doing something to achieve a goal, but more so just to be in your body.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes, 100%. Even though I still wanted to become a mom and get my period back, I'm like, nah, focusing on like the end result is just not serving me anymore. Like, I need to live now. I need to play. And so I definitely brought in so much more play into my life. I'm like, oh my God, like I can still play as an adult. And ever since then, which is a decade ago now, I play all the time. And I'm so grateful for my journey, because I don't think if that happened to me, I don't know if I'd be playing as much with my kids as I do, and making that a priority and leaving those damn dishes in the sink and the kitchen a mess and cleaning it up, one eye open after they're sleeping at night so I can spend time with them. So I think not only did my whole journey, of losing my period, getting it back, serve me in that particular moment, but it's still reaping its benefits, now today. And I get to, pass that down to my kids.
Yeah. That's the beauty of this work. It's not just, okay, I gained weight, I got my period back. Or it's not just, okay, I can eat more freely now and not be terrified of weight gain. It's like this work teaches you how to step out of that victim mentality in any area of your life and into a growth mindset, like envisioning how you want your life to be or how you want to feel in your life and stepping into that. It teaches you how to regulate your emotions. And so therefore be more present for the things that actually really matter, like being able to enjoy your life, because especially anyone who's type A or over controlled or, perfectionistic, you're really good at setting goals and achieving them. And you're probably very successful in every realm of your life, or you can achieve the things you put your mind to. But if you can't enjoy them, be there in the moment, be there, play with your kids because you feel like there's always something that's got to be done and you have to check that off your list in order to feel good, then it's almost like, I don't want to say a waste, but it's sad. It's sad to not be able to enjoy all the fruits of your labor.
And you're watching life pass you by. You're literally, it's almost like you are watching through a lens of just letting your life pass you by, being there, but not being in your life or being connected to it.
Yeah.
Which is really hard because, and I know you can relate to, Natalie, we have let this happen for a while, and, it's just, life is so much more joyful, but it also can be hard because the more connected you are to your life when things happen, that's hard too, but that's what makes the ups so beautiful when they are up, getting through those harder times. Being present. I ended up getting a tattoo on my wrist before I had my first kid. I'm like, that's a thing that also came into my life, is you need to be more present. You need to be present for your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the neutral, the things, because I was a robot. Yeah. I was a robot and I was highly successful. I was working 3 jobs. I was a dietitian. I did everything right in the right order, but I wasn't present. I was miserable. I was a shell of myself, and life passed me by.
Yeah. It's like avoiding discomfort. When you get everything right, when you have everything in control, it's a way of avoiding those uncomfortable emotions. And you're right. By being present, you are now confronted with that discomfort, but you learn how to navigate through it and get to the other side versus having these things pile up in the background and just kind of running away from them with more control. So it really, it's such a beautiful story of growth and strength, of being able to come back and connect, not just with your body, but with your life. I love that. And there's Kitty saying hello, just like you promised.
He came up. I knew he would.
Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to summarize, Cynthia, some of the amazing things that you said. One of the things that stood out was that you could be doing everything right and you could be eating healthy and exercising, but it's not necessarily healthy for your body, even if your weight looks quote unquote normal. And that the most important thing is to be able to come back into your body to achieve safety in your body in order for things to function and to be present in your life, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with being a type A or a control freak, because there's so many positives to that. You can achieve all these successes in your life, and you can also learn how to develop a different relationship with your emotions and with your body so that you can be more present and actually enjoy your life and the fruits of your labor.
Yes. Remember, it can be and I like to say through, this work is that, can we channel our type A-ness in the places that we need to, I need to wake up and go to work every day. But also get that, if you want to say type B, of being like, what, I'm really tired. I'm going to sleep in today and skip my workout. So having that balance, again, I guess it all kind of comes back down to balance and, creating what that might look for you in that season of life that you're in. If you're a new mom, like you, Natalie, balance is going to look a little bit different than, a 7 and a 9-year-old mom. So knowing that it can change. And one thing I never thought I would be excited is about the unknown, about waking up each day and wondering what the day was going to bring, versus what is my day going to bring? The dread, right? What is the day? Being open to the possibilities of everything, which it takes some time to get there, but the practice is well worth it.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree, especially being someone who used to have my whole day time blocked. And if one thing went wrong or I didn't get to do one thing, I felt like the whole day was ruined. And now having, like you said, with a 6-month-old, every day can be so unpredictable. And sometimes I have no plan, but that flexibility is just being able to be flexible and to be open is just a gift. Something
it is. It's the gift that keeps on giving, especially as a new mom. Like the unpredictability of babies can really throw us for a loop. And I'm sure you probably, reflecting your head, being like, oh my gosh, if I was still in this place, how motherhood would look so much different. And I just want to say, those that are maybe listening and are mothers out there and you're still in this place, like, it's never too late. Like, it's never too late. You get to pass that down to your kids, which is so beautiful. And then they get to pass it down to their kids and so forth. And you can break this generational thing of body obsession and, what health is supposed to look like. So
100%. Yeah. I mean, I have clients in their 40s and 50s and 60s and are doing this work, and it never becomes less helpful or less meaningful. It's never too late to change your relationship with something. And like you said, to pass that on to your kids, or even to deepen your relationships with your family and friends. So I love how you mentioned that.
Yes. And yourself, right? That we're the most important people, right? And then that gets to pour over into everyone else in our lives. So
thank you for mentioning that. I think the permission to work on your relationship with yourself, or even just to do something for yourself, is something that a lot of us need, especially when we've been, just really hard workers, and especially, have prioritized others' needs over our own. So that's a really important reminder. Is there anything that you'd like our listeners to know, or do you want to share where's the best place to connect more with you?
So I just want to say, this is a whole journey, and it takes time. And know that inner critic that likes to come in and say mean things to you, like, you have the voice back to calm it down and to say, like, no, that is not true. And I think our inner critic comes up the most when we are starting to shift and change in our bodies. Mm-hmm. And we can look at that inner critic as like, oh my gosh, maybe we shouldn't do this. But really that's almost a good sign that it's coming up, that your body's kind of like, no, I don't want to do this. But, stepping outside of your comfort zone is going to create that safety in your body versus staying safe, listening to that internal dialogue that we're so used to. But it takes time. It takes practice. You don't have self-talk one day and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'm happy and everything's okay. Like, it takes practice. Like, think about it as learning a new language in a country that's speaking a different language. Right. So I just want to share that. And then you guys can find me at on Instagram, _nutritionist, or you can listen to my podcast. And Natalie's been on there before, but it's been a long time and we can't remember when. But if you search her name, I'm sure you can find her. And so you can find me at the Recovery Podcast as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. It was so great chatting with you.
Thank you, Natalie.